Good morning, Europe. It's Wednesday, the 13th of July. Let's bring you up to date with our top stories.
Russian and Ukrainian military delegations get ready to meet UN officials in Istanbul as Kyiv seeks a corridor through the Black Sea to resume grain exports. Conservative MPs in the UK are poised to cast their first vote for their next party leader and Prime Minister, with some bookies already placing Rishi Sunak as the favourite. And rising energy prices add to Belgian housing woes, with over 50,000 families waiting for social housing in Brussels alone.
Military delegations from Ukraine, Russia and Turkey are meeting UN officials in Istanbul. Turkey has previously played a key role in talks between Russia and Ukraine, initially on trying to broker a peace. But today they're hoping to set up a potential Black Sea corridor to resume the export of grain from the war-battered country. Ukraine has struggled to export its goods, with many of its ports blocked as war rages along its southern coast. It also accuses Moscow of stealing its grain from farms in the areas its invading troops have captured. Kyiv is pushing for the issue of unblocking Ukrainian grain to be resolved under the auspices of the UN. One idea would be to see that shipments start along specific corridors, with Ukrainian vessels guiding grain ships in and out through mined waters. Even if a deal is struck, shipping and insurance companies will require safety reassurances. The talks come at a time of record high food prices globally, as the conflict in the world's largest grain supplier has fueled concerns about food security. Wheat and fertiliser make up nearly a fifth of Ukraine's exports. The coming harvest is also at risk, as there's now a shortage of storage space due to the halt in distribution.
The drought that has hit Europe this year has strongly affected food production in Romania. It will result in lower cereal production and an estimated price hike of 30 to 40%. Special climatic conditions will be reflected in the prices of both basic products and processed foods. Experts are blaming the drought on climate change, which could lead to substantial changes in agriculture in the coming years.
The drought has impacted both the autumn crops, namely wheat and barley, as well as rapeseed, but it will also affect the spring crops, especially the corn and sunflower. It is possible to see a significant increase in the price of basic products, but also processed products.
Pork could also become more expensive. Farmers have not yet recovered from the recent rise in energy prices, and swine fever was a big blow for the industry 5 years ago. The drought could also have an impact on the price of honey.
For sunflower crops, the drought has wreaked havoc. It hasn't rained since May, and in May it rained very little, maybe 5 litres of water per square metre.
Global food security faces several challenges, including drought, rising temperatures and flooding. Half of Romania is exposed to drought and shrinking cultivable areas, while the other half faces flooding and soil erosion.
The first vote to find a replacement for Boris Johnson as leader of the Conservative Party and then Prime Minister will be held today. The backbench committee running the election announced 24 hours earlier that only 8 of the 11 hopefuls had made it onto the official first-round ballot. Depending on who you're speaking to, former Chancellor Rishi Sunak is the bookie's favourite, along with Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt. Others say Liz Truss is likely to reach the final round of 2. Today, after Prime Minister's question time, candidates must secure at least 30 votes each to make it to the next round, with the result expected by early evening. The leadership race will eventually be whittled down to 2 candidates by the end of next week, after which they'll have the summer recess to win the support of the Tory membership before the final result on September 5th.
Yesterday, only 8 of the 11 candidates who are running for the Conservative Party leadership and thus the Prime Ministership of the United Kingdom managed to get into the official race by getting at least 20 MPs to support them. Now, those candidates were in hustings last night trying to drum up even more support from fellow MPs, and today the race will be whittled down even further. They have to get through the next round, which means that 30 of their fellow MPs back them for them to go into the second round. Now, of those, we don't know the exact figures of what people got. It is a secret ballot, but beforehand, Rishi Sunak was by far in the lead with the most nominations from MPs. Penny Mordaunt as well, she was putting in a strong performance. Tom Tugendhat, the rest of the list, Nadeem Zahawi, we think only managed to scrape by. Now, what they will do next is go through a series of votes where the bottom of each level of that vote will then be removed and more votes will be cast until there is a final 2 at some point next week. Before then, they'll go through TV debates on Friday, Sunday and Saturday night, and then eventually they will be declared a winner on the 5th of September, giving them just a month to try and form a government and relaunch the party and their long campaign bid for an election which will be around 20 months later. Now, something to watch out for today is the number of high-profile MPs who are government ministers under the last administration of Boris Johnson haven't yet declared. Sajid Javid was a late dropout in the race. He hasn't yet said who he's going to back. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, she was rumoured to be mulling a run herself to represent the right of the party. She decided against that, but he hasn't yet declared who she will be backing. Boris Johnson, though, says that he will not be declaring any favoured candidate in this race, so there is still much to play for. Vincent McAviney, Euronews, London.
A new Belgian comic book. This one depicting the lives of locals forced to live on the streets due to rising rental prices in this neighbourhood. Among the drawings, Simona Brida, who struggled for years to find a home. One landlord even decided to sell his apartment so he would not be legally obliged to rent it to her.
He asked me, "What nationality are you?" And I told him, and he said, "Oh, I thought you were Turkish." "Sorry, madam, it is gone. I sold it to someone else." I cried a lot. I'd waited 1 month for this place.
And it's not due to a lack of housing, as the city builds around 3,500 new houses per year. This organisation that helps people in need of a home says the city is responding to the needs of private investors and not to the local inhabitants.
Often the problem is people only get to visit filthy places, and they are the only rentals landlords will give them because they're black, because they wear the veil or whatever, because they don't have much income and they are forced to take this accommodation because it's that or the street.
With rising energy prices and inflation, the situation will get worse in Brussels before it gets better. The picture across the continent is similar. Housing Europe say house prices are growing at their fastest pace in over a decade. Eurostat confirms this. New data says house prices have spiked by 9.8% in the euro area and by 10.5% in the European Union since last year. Raw material costs too. NGOs say cities should look to Austria for inspiration.
You have to look at cities like Vienna, who are consistently managing to deliver limited profit housing over the long term.
In Vienna, 3 in 5 live in social housing. Many say that's why the Austrian capital scores high in quality of life indexes. But back here in Brussels, over 50,000 families are on a waiting list for social housing, which is about 10% of the population of the city. Maeve McMahon, Euronews, Brussels.